I'm Abby Neal and I'm here to show that I understand the relationship between sound and picture. Now I decided to use two different sort of type programmes and films of a similar genre, so I used Goodfellas and I used Dexter. Now the scene I decided to look at was the very last scene of the series, and that's when Dexter's popular sister sadly passes away. Now Dexter realises everything and everyone he becomes close to ends up dying on his behalf. Now you know this because you are personally addressed by Dexter through a voiceover.
I destroy everyone I love. And I can't let that happen to Hannah, to Harrison. I have to protect them from me.
Even though no dialogue is actually used, it complements camera perspective because he actually places Deb's body in the water and comes to terms with his thoughts. A close-up shot is used as he addresses the viewer and obviously what he's thinking, what's going through his mind. So you're thoroughly focused on Dexter. The scene I decided to look at was the very first scene of the film, and that is when you were introduced to the characters travelling somewhere. Now Henry asked another character, Jimmy, if he's hit something. Well, obviously Henry is the guy driving, so he's the closest to you as you're viewing. He's the closest to you as a viewer, so his voice appears louder. One of the characters is in the back, but his voice is further away from the camera, so his voice appears quieter, which complements camera position.
What's up? What's up?
Did I hit something?
What is it?
Is there flat?
Films often include conversation to create a counterpoint camera perspective.
What is it? Is there flat?
It's spoken by one of the brothers, and this suggests the character is confused and creates an atmosphere leading to the next shot. The car is then parked in the middle of nowhere, and because the characters want to see why this sound is coming from the boot. Now, a very violent character decides to stab the victim, and you can hear the victim screeching in pain, suggesting that he is being killed.
No, fucking piece of shit.
Finally, you agree to a voiceover informing you as a viewer a personal opinion. I've always wanted to be a gangster, which is a personal thought, of course, and it remained normally intimate in quality because Henry is addressing you personally as a viewer, just like Dexter was personally addressing you too.
Always wanted to be a gangster.
Now we're doing Dexter, okay. A few sound effects were used in this scene, and you hear the sound of the water. You hear the sound of the water as Dexter's boat glides through it, suggesting movement is occurring. This gives the scene a realistic feel and builds an atmosphere. As soon as it cuts to the lightning, you hear a thunderstorm sound effect, suggesting maybe perhaps Dexter is evil and destructing everyone he gets close to. You associate thunder and lightning with fear and power. These sound effects continue throughout the scene, creating a powerful mood. Now when Dexter throws his mobile device out to sea, as soon as it touches the surface of the water, you hear a violent splash, which of course builds tension. But then you later realise, of course, he doesn't want anything to do with anyone anymore. He doesn't want anyone else to contact him or find out where the hell he is. A moment of silence occurs when Dexter is standing by Deb, wrapped in white covers. As soon as Dexter pulls back the white cloth, you hear his soft fingertips touching the material. When Dexter pulls away, you hear the roar of his engine, suggesting movement is occurring again, so perhaps this is a metaphor for the anger he's feeling inside him, and because he just causes destruction to everybody he gets close to and everybody that he loves. Now these sound effects were not used to provide rhythm, but to create a clear narrative. When Dexter picks up Deb to place her in the water, the thunder is less aggressive sounding, very subtle, creating a different mood and environment as it's peaceful. And of course I didn't want the sound effects to sort of distract you because it's all focused entirely on Deb. Now Dexter let Deb gently fall from his arms into the water, and as soon as Deb hits the surface, you hear a splashing sound. The visuals and sound effects are exact, so for example, everything that you see, you're hearing exactly the same thing. So as soon as Deb hit that water, you heard that she's hit it. The thunder continues again throughout until Dexter's voiceover occurs again, building tension. Goodfellas. So firstly, you hear the sound of the car engine, which slowly gets quieter as the camera track passes. This suggests that the car is moving, perhaps going somewhere or returning from a heist. It gives a realistic feel as you know movement, as again I said, is occurring. You then hear a continuous banging sound suggesting the driver has hit something, or perhaps something in the boot is giving it a narrative motivating the next cut. When the gentleman gets out of the vehicle to check on the noise, you hear closing of the doors, giving a realistic feel that is what you do naturally when you get out of your vehicle. You just naturally close it behind you. A crunching noise is heard, so you are able to detect the type of environment the boys are in. So of course they're out in the middle of nowhere, and you also know this is because another sound effect is used, which is a natural sound effect of the outside, so birds chirping, etc. Suggesting that the characters are perhaps in a field or a woods because they're not really going to take their car and park it in the street if something's banging in the boot. As soon as one of the guys takes out his knife from under his jacket, a sharp sound effect is used, which connotes that of course the knife is sharp and that it will be used on the victim in the boot. As soon as the victim is being stabbed, you can hear the sound effect of it penetrating the skin, providing a continuous rhythm. When the victim is shot, you also hear loud bangs, giving again more realism towards the scene. A clear narrative is created from using these sound effects. Back to Dexter again. There is no background music used, but a continuous foreground music which is very peaceful and string sounding which builds up the next scene. The further out to sea Dexter goes, the more powerful the music is, and suddenly the music cuts out at 0:40, which motivates the next cut. Dexter is obviously thinking about his dead sister, and he's not going to focus anywhere else because she is the main character, she is the main focus of this scene. As soon as it cuts to a close-up of Deb, string-like music is introduced again, which is of course his continuous foreground music. It's very slow, sad but powerful. And the string-sounding music connotes angels singing perhaps. It begins to fade when Dexter picks Deb up and stops completely when Deb is thrown into the water. The camera cuts to a close-up of Dexter when a familiar track is used for the show. And this is when Dexter kills someone usually. It continues quietly throughout the voiceover, but begins to appear louder the further away Dexter drives away from shore and into the storm, which of course again builds tension and creates a mood with the character. The sound is recorded on location.
I destroy everyone I love.
This is because it would be near enough impossible for them to create the exact time that Deb hits the water for that sound to happen, and for the engine and everything else, it just wouldn't work. So this is all done on location, except for of course the foreground music, which would have been put in when editing was required. So now we're looking at Goodfellas again, and there is no background music throughout the scene. However, the foreground music appears very late, so that happens at 1 minute 22 seconds. As soon as Henry finishes addressing how he always knew that he wanted to be a gangster and shuts the boot, you are greeted to the foreground music, which is of course very upbeat and is to the decade of the film that is setting. The foreground music is used to diffuse tension and familiarise the viewer, which again is what I said, the decade the time is filmed in, even though you've already been told by subtitles previously within this clip.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Dexter again. So both diegetic and non-diegetic sounds occur in this clip. For example, the sound of the boat travelling through the water is diegetic, as Dexter is able to hear that, which illustrates an illusion that the boat is moving, as previously discussed. Now, the foreground music is non-diegetic, as Dexter cannot hear this. Even though both types of sound are occurring at the same time, this creates a mood and connection with the viewer and the character. The music gives you an illusion that it's very sad, and Dexter is very angry with himself. And the music, so if the music had been happy, the whole scene would completely change. So he'd be happy that his sister had died. it just would not work. He would not get the same connection in the same way. Now for Goodfellas, the noise is coming from the boot, and that's diegetic as the men can hear this. The reason this is done is to set up the next scene, basically. Had the audience had not have heard it, neither the men inside, there will not be an illusion that something is in the boot, so there will be no meaning for why they would have to stop the car. And that will create complete confusion amongst everyone, basically. Thank you for listening. I've been Abby Neal, and you've been brilliant.